Major Garrett joins us from Washington. Major, as you know, we're 1 week away from the caucuses.
I heard about that.
Right? It's very close between Trump and Cruz. Does it really matter which one of them wins there?
It does. Here's why. If Trump wins Iowa, he will win New Hampshire, and he will in all likelihood win South Carolina. Then the question becomes, is there any precedent for someone winning Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina in either party? But let's just take the Republican Party and then not win the nomination. Answer, no. If you win the first three, you essentially are in the position to roll the table. And Donald Trump's campaign is looking for a victory in Iowa to be that catapult into New Hampshire, where it already has a solid and has maintained a solid double-digit lead, and also in South Carolina. So the only thing that stands in the way of that run-the-table scenario that the Trump campaign has been eyeballing for the better part of 2 months is a defeat in Iowa. But I would put it this way. If Trump, let's say, finishes a close and happy second to Ted Cruz, and by that I mean there's no Howard Dean shriek moment from Donald Trump. He says, you know what, we worked hard, we didn't do as well as we could, but on to New Hampshire, we fight for the country, we fight for you, and everything is great, and I've learned a lot, and let's go on and win New Hampshire. Then he still has momentum. If he finishes a distant second in Iowa, then maybe some of his supporters say, you know, this whole winning thing and always winning maybe isn't true. But if Trump does win in Iowa, he'll say, you see, I brought new people to the caucuses. I defied all the doubters. I beat Ted Cruz, who spent a lot of time here and was deeply organized in all the traditional conservative Republican constituencies, and I still won. This thing can happen, folks. Follow me to New Hampshire. He would have very, very solid momentum if he wins Iowa.
So let's talk about the candidates duking it out for third place. Marco Rubio, Chris Christie, they both stepped up their game in Iowa. But what would a third place win mean for them?
So it's all in theory, and it's a very interesting theory, one I've really never seen before, but as we've all suggested to ourselves and talked about publicly, a lot of this campaign we've never seen before. So can you really have a competitive and interesting and meaningful competition for third place in Iowa? In fact, you can, because if you think about that not as third place, but first place in the quote-unquote establishment or alternative to Trump and Cruz caucus, then first place does matter. And where you finish relative to everyone else matters even more. So what the Rubio campaign is looking for, they no longer believe they can finish first or second. They more or less have given up on that. They've dialed back some of their television advertising in Iowa because they've reached that conclusion. However, they figure if they can get in the 15, 16, maybe 17-point range in Iowa as third, and everyone else, Christie, Jeb Bush, John Kasich, way behind them, then they go into New Hampshire with possibly some credibility, some establishment or alternative momentum, maybe finish second in New Hampshire, and then carry on to South Carolina. That's one of the reasons the Rubio campaign is so grateful to have the endorsement of the state's largest newspaper, the Des Moines Register. It's not a real big deal among Cruz and Trump supporters, but it is among those Republicans in that establishment or alternative category who are trying to figure out who's the best Republican to back, who's the best Republican who has a chance to go up against Trump or Cruz, and that's exactly where Rubio is trying to position himself.
Major, former Texas Governor Rick Perry has now endorsed Ted Cruz. Will that give Cruz a pretty big boost?
He needs it because last week he had some non-endorsements, whatever the opposite of an endorsement is.
Well, endorsements are important, but indifference matters almost as much. And what Ted Cruz saw this weekend is indifference from one of his Senate colleagues, the very powerful, very persuasive Charles Grassley, 6-term senator of Iowa. He's also gotten brushback from the sitting Republican Iowa governor, Terry Branstad. And today, Marco Rubio will campaign with Joni Ernst, a freshman Republican in the United States Senate, also from Iowa. Grassley and Ernst are not endorsing in the caucuses, but the fact that Grassley appeared with Trump and Ernst today will appear with Rubio means neither is appearing with Ted Cruz, meaning his Senate colleagues are turning their back conspicuously in Iowa on Ted Cruz. So that's the kind of indifference that sends a subtle, or maybe not so subtle, signal to Iowa caucus Republicans. Rick Perry does help a little bit. He's a Texan, so that sort of is discounted slightly because Texans always stand together and stick together. And Rick Perry did not have nearly the campaign in the Iowa caucuses this time around he tried to put together 4 years ago. So at the margins, it helps. But what Ted Cruz could really use is somebody outside of Texas who says, this guy knows how to get it done.
Major Garrett, thank you.
You got it.
And stick with CBSN. Later in the hour, we will talk with Face the Nation moderator John Dickerson and our Nancy Cortez about how the Democratic race is shaping up.